Good morning, one and all. Welcome once again to another edition of Coffee and Sports in the Morning here on Wide Wire Sports Network. I'm a host for the day, Mr. William D. Morgan. Let me go ahead and bring my brother from another mother in. Mo, what's up, man?
Hey, good morning, Will. Good morning, everybody out there joining us.
Normally Carmike will be here with us, but he is out ill. So get ready, get better soon, my brother. Get better soon. Hopefully we'll have
Yeah,
you with us
definitely.
tomorrow as we bring in as we give you the best three host sports show ever. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Yesterday it was all about the ladies. The UConn women turned it on in the third quarter and downright trashed South Carolina to take the throne for women's basketball in 2025. Sarah Strong dropped 24 points at 15 rebounds. AZ Fudd dropped 24 points. Paige Beckers with 17. I say all that to say this. Did Don Staley get out coached, or was UConn just a better team?
Well, UConn came into the game with more firepower.
Mm-hmm.
For South Carolina to win, they would have had to play a perfect game. And it has to start off with pace. They had to be able to control pace, make it more of a grind, and they weren't able to do that. Look, Paige Beckers is the best player on either team,
Yep.
but she wasn't the key to them winning. It was Sarah Strong. It was AZ Fudd, like combining for 48 points. South Carolina just doesn't possess that kind of firepower. And once UConn unleashed on them and they sped the game up, they just pulled away. So look, Gino's a great coach. Don Staley's a great coach in her own right. I would have said that when UConn won the game before, that was great coaching. But I don't think Don Staley was out coached. They were just a better team. They just came in there with more firepower. So I'm not shocked with that result. I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and you got to give UConn and you got to give Coach Gino Oriama all the credit in the world. I think this is his 12th national championship. So shout out to UConn and the Lady Huskies.
They got it done. They definitely got it done. That is for sure. Congratulations to them. Meanwhile, over in the men's side, we had a couple of awesome games. Auburn did everything that they could to get that victory, but Florida showed excellence down the stretch. We also had Duke. Looks like they ran out of gas in the fourth quarter to let Houston go ahead and get that win. What are your thoughts on the men's side of the bracket?
I thought the South Carolina, I'm sorry, Florida Auburn game was a really good game. The problem was I thought Florida just they presented more problems for Auburn, and they were able to slow the big man down. And I
Yes.
told you coming in, he had to have a big game for them to have a legitimate chance to win. And I thought they kept him under wraps. And more importantly, look, if Walter Clayton Jr. is going to continue to shoot like he's shooting, who's going to beat them? Right? Who's going to stop them? I'll tell you who's going to stop them. Houston's going to stop them.
Oh
Houston's
yeah.
going to stop them.
Oh
And
yeah.
look, I watched the Houston Duke game from start to finish, and the mistake that Duke made was they let Houston hang around.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments in that game where Duke was threatening to go up by 20, 25 points, like just completely obliterate them, break their spirits, and they never could. Houston always stayed close enough because their shooters were hitting shots and they stayed connected to him. And as the game got closer, Duke tightened up. Duke tightened up. You could watch the game and literally watch Duke start to play not to lose, and they tightened up. And Houston became a more confident team. They fought them, that grinded them. They became more confident. I don't agree with the people that are saying that Cooper Flag choked. I don't think he choked. He didn't look like he was afraid of the moment. He just didn't make the shots that he took. But I
Right.
don't think I don't think he choked. Now you might say some of his teammates look like they got tight late for sure. But look, I think Houston was able to do what Houston's done all season in a game where the referees let them play.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
there was so much contact, so much physicality. As the game played on, that played into Houston's favor, and Houston won.
And that was a concern that we both had coming into this game. Would the rest let them play their brand of ball? Um, we'll see if that continues with Florida. But despite that loss in the Final Four, Cooper Flag wins the 2025 Naismith College Player of the Year award.
Deserving.
Should losing before the championship hurt your chances of winning Player of the Year? And does this drop his draft stock at all, Mo?
Nah. So the same way winning MVP in the NBA is a regular season award, this is a reward for everything Cooper Flag has done over the course of the regular season. So him losing it, I don't think it should change it. You could make a stronger case in the NBA that maybe they shouldn't decide MVP until after the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that way you can do something unique. You could be both the MVP and the Finals MVP or something to that effect. But no, I think Cooper Flag is deserving of the award. I do not think it changes his draft status at all. In terms of talent, he's as talented as any player coming out. And his ceiling, he has an incredibly high ceiling. Now, look, I'm one of those people that's always optimistic, but do I know for sure what he's going to be at the next level? I have no clue. To just say out now, I know for a fact he's going to step into the next level and immediately be one of the better players in the game. We'll see. He has all the talent in the world, but what if I told you he stepped into the next level, Will, and he was just a better version of Josh Giddey?
Yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah. I feel you on that.
But I'm just making a point that that's not a bad player, by the way. That's a really good player, especially a better version of Giddey. But if he so before we jump on the bandwagon and say he's going to be transcended, I can't do that. I can't do that because I haven't seen him at the next level.
I do agree. Now let's go ahead and move on over to the NBA. The Eastern Conference is locked in all the way to the play-in, and the West is still open. How do you feel about the three play-in contenders in the Heat, Bulls, and Hawks? In my opinion, I think probably the best well-built team would be the Heat. They have more of a solid roster with players in defined positions than the Bulls and the Heat do. But what are you thinking about that play-in tournament?
Your assessment of the Heat, I would agree with, but I would go this way. I'm going to go with the team that's been playing the best basketball, been the most confident over the last month or so. That'd be your Bulls. That would actually be your Bulls. And if we were just judging on the last month or so, they'd be calling Kobe White an MVP candidate.
They've been hot.
That's how well they've played. Look, I think the Bulls are going to get in the play-in. I think they're going to win the play-in, and they're going to be in the 8th spot. Now, there's an upside and a downside. If you're in, you're in it to win it. But if you're the 8th seed, you're going to play the Cavaliers. Now, do I think the Bulls are going to beat the Cavaliers? I don't, but they shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't. No.
They shouldn't. But could they steal a game because of their offense? Yeah, look, I think they're capable of stealing a game because of what Kobe White and company have done over the last month or so. So I think ultimately when the Bulls get to the play-in game and they play, I think they're going to win and they're going to play their way into the playoffs.
I'm going to say this real quick. Some cake mix, a remix, 2 Chico sticks, Bulls in 5.
No. I like that. Look, you got to look. They have been look. It's one of those things, though, Will, where you go, where was this early in the year? Maybe it's as simple as right now they all have defined roles, right? And I made the case not too long ago, but they got better by default just by getting rid of Zach LaVine.
Yes, yes. They play more as a team.
Right. For all his talent, Zach LaVine is not, he can't be the guy. Nowhere, he cannot be your guy. Nobody wants to hear this, but I think Zach LaVine ultimately what he should be is what Austin Reeves is. He's a third option, a really good third option, a special third option, but a third option nonetheless. I love watching your Bulls play because they light up the scoreboard and they're fun to watch because they play at a fast pace. They've even found a way to get the best version of Patrick Williams.
My only issue is this though. If you go off your thought process and they win the play-in, okay, you make that 8th seed. even if you make a good showing against Cleveland, that team still has a lot they need to fix. Don't let this run fool y'all. That team still has a lot of holes they need to fill, a lot of issues they need to fix. My Billy Donovan is one of them because I'm not crazy about him as a coach. But the more successful you are, the more you tend to keep that coaching staff and don't want to make change. And we saw for a long while before this, the Bulls didn't want to make trades or couldn't make trades and get better. That's the only thing that scares me. That if you win the play in, you make a good showing against the Cavaliers, you might want to run this back. And this is not the team you want to run things back with. Just because you get hot doesn't mean you where you need to be as a team. And this team got far more issues than almost any other team in the league.
Look, I agree. Look, in the bigger picture, I'm telling you what I think is going to happen. But in the bigger picture, is this fool's gold? Right?
Yeah.
Is this just enough to make people think the Bulls are better than what they are when they may benefit more from not making the postseason and get a higher draft pick, right? Because, like you said, there are a lot of areas they need to address across that roster in terms of roster construction. Yeah, I'm with you. I am with you on that point. It's tough though, right? You on one hand, you're an organization and you're trying to be competitive and give your fan base hope. On the other hand, if you give them false hope and they go, well, they're just going to add a free agent to what they already have and they'll be good to go. And then we look
Yeah.
up and they're going to look like a lottery team next year, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to balance the optimism with still being smart about what you're going to do towards the future.
I gotta say this real quick because Gene hit me up with a good one in chat. A garden gnome, a telephone. Why don't you change your tone? Bulls going home.
When it's all said and done, I think that's factual. Yeah. Look,
Gee, man.
it, it's that's become the
Oh,
thing, right? But yeah, look, Orlando's not a world-beating team right now. I'm just
no,
the teams
no.
are in front of you guys. So could the Bulls win that? Yeah. But again, it should be about your long-term success.
Right.
And Billy Donovan has been a big part of your long-term shortcomings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's time. I think it's time to really look to not just work on roster construction, but find a better leader in your locker room.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's about that time. It's about that time to make some changes and start getting better for the long term, the long haul of the team.
Yeah,
Bull fans will remember we did a lot of this with Jimmy Butler. It was enough to get to the play in, but then lose to the Heat. What 2 years in a row in a playing tournament? So yeah, we gotta see it. We need some changes, and we got to get better. Like I said before, it's great to make a run. Fantastic to make a run. To play confidently. It's a young team that can score up and down the court, but at the end of the day, the problems are still there. And my postseason success is fine, but when you look at the total picture, some changes got to be made. Speaking of changes, the Suns are really on the outside of the playoffs, looking in behind the Mavericks, who don't have Kyrie and traded Luka. Is it time to disband this Suns team?
it was time to do that 2 years ago when they first when James Jones first made the mistake of putting the Suns team together. Sometimes a really smart GM can overreach,
Yes.
and James Jones is guilty of that. He overreached and he made a panic move, and maybe he didn't have a choice. He does have a young owner, a new owner who wanted to make splash moves. Um, the splash moves have failed. I think in today's NBA, if you're a team like Phoenix or a franchise like Phoenix, patience would have been your best friend. Patience,
Mhm.
patience would have benefited you
Mhm.
more. Patience would have allowed you to let Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges to continue to develop, and then we'd be here where they'd both be around 26 or 27 and all-star caliber players flanking Book, but you panicked and you cost your franchise. Of course, it's time to disband. I'd go a step further though. If I'm Book, I'm 30 years old. I don't want to be part of a rebuild.
Right.
I want no part of that.
Right.
Well, I look. If I'm Book, I want out. I want out. Book wants to go to a contender, I'm sure, and be more relevant going forward in his career. So yeah, I think the Suns' future is bleak. The best thing they can do is get really good assets going forward for the future. But right now, in the present, they're a train wreck.
I'm just trying to figure out who gave Bradley Bill a no trade clause in his contract. Who did that?
Probably the Wizards. It seems like a Wizard move. It's got to be the Wizards, right? Because
Gotta be.
Only the Wizards will look at Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma and go, that could be our 1 and our 2. and we'll build around those 2 guys.
Oh my gosh.
Two guys that were role players. Well, I mean, Poole was more of a 6-man, a star 6-man, but you get my point. He was a star 6-man for a reason.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
He's not a guy that could carry a franchise, but the Wizards thought Jordan Poole's about to be the next Steph. They felt that. They convinced themselves of that.
Oh my gosh. They did. All right, Mo. Another thing I got for you here. Do you think it's okay that LeBron James never participated in the dunk contest?
Look, I'm good with it. You would have liked him at least done one, but if you really watch LeBron play, right? It's not like he's got like a variety of dunks.
He's a power dunker.
He's a power dunker. He's more of a game/power dunker. So he's not one of those guys that gets airborne and has incredible hang time and he can do all these different kind of. He doesn't have a wide ranging dunk repertoire. So if he got in a slam dunk, because this is how LeBron thinks. I don't have anything to win, but I have a lot to lose. Right.
You
feel me? So
yep, I feel you.
Why do that? Right? Why do that so that the guys that don't like me, the haters, can go, well, LeBron lost a slam dunk, so you know what that means. Like, he's not going to do something, and he's not the only one. A lot of today's stars are like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything that might hurt my brand, right? Especially now with social media. If you go up for a dunk and you miss it, or they're just going to play that on a loop, right? That's going to go viral. So I don't have a problem with it. I know what he is. He's a terrific player. Him being a great player is more important than him winning a slam dunk competition.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys that have won slam dunk competitions and they weren't really great players.
All right, Mo. Let's play sticking with the NBA. Let's play a little game. Who would stand the test of time? Now, these 4 players are the most influential players named by ESPN. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Magic Johnson, Steph Curry.
I mean, I agree. What's the question?
Who would stand the test of time?
It's Michael Jordan. He's already standing the test of time. the man ain't played in over 20 years, and all you talk about is Michael Jordan. And even when somebody that plays currently does something, the first thing they or somebody that follows him say is, well, Michael Jordan didn't do this or he did do that. Like, they can't keep his name out of his mouth. Look, Magic Johnson to me could stand the test of time, but when you think of his game, unless you're really a hoop head, you don't really talk about Magic like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. But you would talk about LeBron because it's not that he's played over 20 years. He's still playing at a high level 20 years in, right? So I get talking about LeBron. The question will be, when LeBron retires, will he stand the test? I don't know. If you're asking me, are they going to talk about him and revere him the way they revere Michael Jordan? I don't know. Maybe, because I think LeBron's one of those kind of guys where they're definitely going to stay in the spotlight, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up buying or creating his own network. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to stay relevant in the spotlight. And with Steph Curry, I think Steph is going to be remembered fondly because everybody's going to talk about the greatest shooter ever. Will we talk about him the same way 20 years after he retired? I don't know. I think the one of the strengths of being Steph Curry is the everyday person can relate to him, right? Because he's not a physical freak, right? Anybody can be a Steph Curry.
Right.
Well, I think the fluke of that is, or the weakness of it is, anybody can be Steph Curry. So I don't know if 20 years later you're gonna be like, man, what about Steph? I would say 20 years from now, there's a better chance that you're still talking about the bald guy than you are Steph Curry.
We had the other day, we had a big win from the LA Lakers against the OKC Thunder. Who did this game mean more to? Because I don't think and anybody can get up.
It meant more to the Lakers.
Yeah, and anybody can get up for one game. And anybody can get up for one game. It was on the road, so the Lakers had to be ready. The Lakers had to psych themselves out for this game. Offensively, you don't question the offense to the defensive end, but OKC, I don't think OKC took this game as seriously as they should have. What you thinking?
I'll say this in terms of the standings, it didn't matter to them. It's not like there's anybody that's a threat to catch them, right?
Right.
But it was a big game for the Lakers, and I don't want to water it down and go, well, OKC wasn't. I'm sure they were trying, but it absolutely mattered more to the Lakers because the Lakers are trying to stay in the third spot. If you're in the third spot, despite the fact that they lost to Golden State like a week ago, I think the Lakers would love to play the Golden State Warriors in the series. I think they would like to be at 3, and they would like the Warriors to stay at 6. I think they love that matchup. I love that matchup.
I like that matchup too.
So look, I get why a lot of people are skeptical about that, the results of that, saying like, how hard did OKC try? I'm not going to do all that. It's not like they didn't have all their starters out there. It's not like SGA didn't play 35 plus minutes. Jalen Williams company didn't play 30 plus minutes. They did. They just lost. And it wasn't even a close game. They just got the brakes beat off of them. So do I think this means anything if OKC and the Lakers should meet in the postseason? No. I think this is one isolated game, and it matters to the Lakers, and it means nothing to Oklahoma City. Look at the Western Conference, Will. There's 4 teams that are 46 and 32.
Oh yeah.
4 teams have the same record.
Oh yeah.
So you could go from the 8th seed to the 4th seed. And by the way,
that thing ain't tight.
It's insanely tight. So all these games matter for those teams. Nobody could be taking days off. And the team that's ahead of them, Denver, they're just one game ahead. They're 47 and 32.
Mm-hmm.
Denver could go from being the 4th seed to the 8th seed.
Yep.
And by the way, as brilliant and as great as Joker has been statistically, they're still catching L's left and right. They're still catching L's. It wouldn't shock me if Denver found themselves in the play-in.
Man, here's my thing. The Knicks win again. You know when the Knicks win, that just ruined my whole damn night. Knicks get Jalen Brunson makes his return. The Knicks get a win against the Suns we talked about earlier, 112 to 98. How far can Jalen Brunson take the Knicks? God, I can't stand him.
I'm a big Jalen Brunson fan. I've been a big fan of his since college. But this particular season, the way that the Knicks don't really defend, their lack of depth, I think he can take them to the second round.
That'd be about it.
That's about it. They're not a title contender. They're a good team, but they're not a title contender. For the Knicks to go on a deep run, a lot of things would have to go wrong with other teams. Like there would have to be some injuries involved. They just don't have enough. And their playing style, especially defensively, they don't really defend at a high level. They're really good against really bad teams. They beat another bad team last night. That's kind of what they do.
Yeah. Steph had 3 points in 33 minutes against the Rockets. Are the Warriors okay? Are they all right? I think Draymond ended up with 2 points. So they had 5 points combined against the Rockets. Are the Warriors okay?
To be fair, I think last week Steph had like 52 right in a game. And Draymond probably still had 3, so they combined for 55. So that's consistency. Look, I will say this I'll say this about the Warriors, and I've been consistent about this. They're not as good as people hype them up to be with the Jimmy Butler addition, but they're not as bad as some people think that they're I don't think they're a first round exit, but I don't think they're going to be in anybody's conference finals.
They're in the middle. They're in a place you don't want to be.
They might be. No, go ahead.
They're in a place you don't want to be to me because you're 46 and 32 right now. You're good enough to make the playoffs, but not bad enough to be where you can get a good solid draft pick that can help your team. And I would hate being in that position. I kind of call it the hall of the very good. You're in the hall of the very good. And when you're like that, yes, you're winning, but you're winning to a place to where you can't get a good draft pick. You might make yourself more attracted to free agents because of the winning, but when it comes to drafting, you kind of hamper yourself there because the Warriors, they're not good enough to win a title.
No, they're not. And look, I'm not taking nothing away from the fact that they've been heads and shoulders better than they were with the addition of Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
All I'm saying is this run that they've put together, adding Jimmy Butler, do they truly believe? I find it hard to believe that they believe they're title contenders. I know they'll say that because that's what you're supposed to say, but I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
I just flat out don't see it. I don't think they're title contenders. And look, for all they've done, you just pointed it out. We talked about this. They're 46 and 32. They're in the sixth spot. They easily can fall to the eighth spot. Easily. And nobody's taking games off. So all these games matter. Steph can't have another 5-point game, right?
No,
he can't do that. And Jimmy, and it's not just Steph. Jimmy's if Steph has a 3 or 5-point game, Jimmy Butler can't have 11 points. Like somebody other than, because really the most consistent player has been Brandon Baginski. Yeah, yep. He had another good night last night, but nobody else really stepped up with him. Look, all I'm saying is Golden State is a good team, but they've got a very small margin for error. They really do. So I would love them to make the postseason because I think it's exciting when they're in it, when Steph's in it. But they've got their work cut out. When you've got that many teams with identical records pushing for those spots, they're going to have to step it up.
We talked about it. We talked about falling. The Grizzlies have fallen from fourth to fifth, from the 4th seed to the 5th seed, to playing in the playoffs as of right now. What is going on with the Grizzlies?
Well, let's start with the brilliant move to fire your coach 10 games before the postseason.
I don't understand that.
Look, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but unless he was a horrible person, like someone that the players and management couldn't stand as a human being, explain to me, even if you said to yourself, I'm not sure he's going to be our leader going forward. Even if I believe that, Will, I'm going to let him play out this season. We're 10 games from the postseason.
Yep.
I'm going to let him.
Morning, Key. Welcome to the stream.
Good morning, Key. I'm going to let him play out the season and then judge them on their merits and what they do or don't do in the postseason.
Exactly.
They turned around and said, no, we need to make a change right now. Okay. They've made the change, and it has not been for the better.
No.
You also made the change, and everybody knows this because your star player, John Morant, he and the coach were on opposite sides of how they wanted the offense ran, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, after the firing of the coach, did John Morant step up and become more of a leader? No. John Morant wanted to make gestures and stuff to get himself in hot water with the league offices.
Again.
Right, but not focusing on, we need to get into the postseason. We need to lock down. I need to step my game up on the court and in the locker room as a leader. And he has not done that.
He has not.
They are right now today, the Grizzlies, they're considered to be, even though they have an identical record to everybody else in that little window, they're 46 and 32, but they're in the 8th spot because of the tiebreakers.
Yep.
They look, for them to make the postseason, you got to get out of that play-in. You don't want to be in that play-in.
No.
I think they're an incredibly talented team. What they don't have any leaders on that team. They don't have any leaders. Jaren Jackson is a terrific player. He's not a leader. Desmond Bane's not a leader. John Morant, for all his talent, is absolutely not a leader. So I don't know the path forward for them, right?
He's young and dumb.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't necessarily agree that the league should be able to say the league should have this thing about gestures, unless it is a blatant, violent gesture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to get involved in what's wrong, because I've seen 1,000 players kind of celebrate and do the double quick draw kind of thing when they make a three.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. Look, just come out with a league wide law saying no gestures of any sort like that, and
Right.
we can move on. But to me, the first time he did it, I thought they're doing too much. I didn't see it. The second time he did it, it seemed more blatant because he was trying to say, I don't care what the league said, don't do, right?
Right.
I'm gonna do what I want to do. So they find him. Which, by the way, them fighting him, that was the league and Adam Silver letting him off the hook, because
It could have been a lot worse.
most times that would have been a suspension.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the position they're in right now, they can't afford for him to be suspended for 3 or 4 games. So going forward, I think Memphis is a franchise that's in disarray for all their talent. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some major roster moves made in the offseason.
There's definitely some talent on that team, but definitely some good talent on that team. Just wish they can get it together and show that they could possibly be a force in the West. The Timberwolves seem to be kicking into another gear before the playoffs start. Your boy Ant-Man, the last 5 games, I've been turning it on for his team. Now, how far do you think the Timberwolves can go in this situation? And granted, and I gotta give credit where credit is due. Rudy Gobert has been playing well as well. He's been playing awesome.
I think he's had like 5 double-doubles in a row the last couple of games, and they've been legit double-doubles. He's played well. Obviously, Naz Reid, you're getting good production from him. The veteran Mike Conley has come on and started shooting the ball a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, do I think they're capable of a deep playoff run? I don't think they have enough firepower. I just don't. I don't think they have enough fire. Everything they do is so predicated off of what Ant does. Like, I look at the Timberwolves, and look, there's 2 things that are greatly valued in the NBA at this level. It's great shooting. You value shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you value the ability to create for yourself and others.
Yes.
The Timberwolves have one guy that can break defenses down and create for them. On their whole roster, they got one guy that can consistently do that. Julius Randle could do it to a lot lesser degree, and that's it.
That's your favorite player, ain't it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he's a professional. He's a professional player, so I respect that. But my point is, they don't have a lot of shot creation on that team. They just don't.
No,
they don't have enough. If I'm opposing them, I'm running everything at Ant and making him expand more energy by trying to beat my traps and get the ball in his hands, because I prefer it being Julius Randle's hands.
You know, they kind of remind me of a team that would have been built back in the 90s. You know, you got your bigs doing their job, because Naz Reid is one of the best bigs in the business. I got to give him that. Rudy's playing well. When Randall's on point, that's few and far between. But when he's on point, he's serviceable too. But they just remind me of a team that was built back in the 90s. And it's like, in today's game, you could take advantage of that.
I think so. Look, Julius Randle's a good basketball. I don't want people to think I don't think he's a good basketball player, but I do think he has a ceiling. And
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, he does have a ceiling. Like, I believe that Timberwolves fans, maybe at the time, they thought bringing in Randle was an upgrade from Cat, which it isn't. It's not an upgrade.
It's downgrade.
If he's your second best player, you're probably not that good. That's the best way I can put it. He's on a team that's contending for a title. He's your third option at best.
Yeah.
And he's their second best player right now, which is why they're in the position that they're in. Too much pressure is put on Ant. And for them to go on a deep playoff run, Julius Randle would have to be really good in the postseason, which, by the way, in his NBA career, Julius Randle has never been good in the postseason.
Assuming he played.
Well,
assuming he plays.
right. Well, when he's been in the postseason,
Yeah.
he hasn't been very good.
Yeah.
He hasn't been very good at all. So look, he has a chance to switch that narrative, provided they get in. They got to get in first, but he has a chance to change that narrative. I just think that when you look at how their team is built, they lack shooting and they lack shot creation. Ant would have to average 40 plus to take them on a deep playoff run, and even then they might still lose.
Yep. I agree. Had a wild one last night. Mo. Hawks beat the Jazz 147-134. Where's the defense?
Well, one, it's the Hawks and it's the Jazz. I mean, the Jazz aren't even trying to win. They're just having fun out there, but they're not trying to win. Like they do have a mission, and their mission is to get the best draft possibility that they can. So you're going to get a lot of Olay defense for a team that's tanking openly, right? Yeah. You know, and I know, how does a team like Utah get better? They get better through the draft. They get the draft a lottery pick and make them their centerpiece, because no free agents, not any of the top tier free agents, have ever freely said, I want to go to Utah. No one's ever said that.
And I ain't got to say it. All I got to do, y'all know why. I ain't even got to say it. Y'all know why. You think they keep Lauri Markkanen though? I think they trade Markkanen at the end of the season.
I would have traded him. Not because I don't think he's a good basketball player, but I think that he's just good enough to where he keeps you in purgatory.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people wanted to build him up and make them think he's a centerpiece. He's not a centerpiece player. He's not that kind of player. No. I think he's a very viable second or third option on a good team. Plus, we don't talk about it a lot because you don't watch a lot of Jazz basketball. Lauri Markkanen gives you nothing on the other end of the floor. He's a horrible defender for his length and athleticism. I mean, he can't guard anybody. He's a tall cone.
It definitely can't block shots. That's for sure.
Right. Which, by the way, he's basically 7 feet tall with an incredibly long wingspan. Look, defense and rebounding are about effort. Even if you're not a naturally gifted defender in terms of your instincts,
right?
If you play harder, your team defense is going to be better. It doesn't mean that you as an individual defender will be, but if you give a better effort, there will be better results. It's a want to, and a lot of guys don't want to.
Yeah, definitely. It just amazes me that in an era. How can I put this? Because I don't want to offend. In an era that, and you'll probably see more defense closer to playoff time than we do now, because it would matter more to players. But I still say that the defensive side is still important in the NBA. Maybe not during the regular season, but I think as playoffs get closer and closer and you get into the playoffs, I think that's when we'll start seeing more defensive effort from guys.
I agree. I also think that once you get into the postseason, you'll see a little higher level of physicality allowed by the referees. Right? They're going to let them play a little bit more, but that's always been the case in this era of basketball, right? Because this era of basketball is geared towards offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the whole point of this era of basketball. It's geared toward offense. People want to see points put up. I get that. I enjoy that too. But I want to see points put up over somebody competing against you defensively. Like if you can make tough shots, more power to you. But I just want somebody to contest those shots to make you earn them. So look, I think going forward, sure. We were talking about the postseason and some of the seeding issues. Well, look, the Lakers are terrible in transition defense.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any rim protection. The Nuggets, one of the reasons why Joker can keep putting up these prolific numbers, and they keep taking L's, is they're not a good defensive team.
No,
they're not.
No.
They're a middle pack defensive team at best. And look, to be fair, part of them being a bad defensive team is Joker.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are two sides to the floor, and I know when people go to the box score, they go, he had 40, 10, and 10. That's impressive. It is. But watch the entirety of the game. The other team pretty much can get whatever shot they want because he plays in drop coverage because he does not have the lateral quickness to play in space.
Yep.
They're going to take advantage of that all the time.
You still think that SGA is going to be your MVP over Joker?
I really don't think it's a lock. I think SGA should win, but Joker's putting up the numbers that he's putting up. I always said this. This is not going to be one of those unanimous MVPs. This is going to be one of those that if SGA wins, it's going to be close. And it wouldn't shock me if Joker won. It really wouldn't.
Me neither. Me neither.
I'm simply saying who I think should be this season's MVP. Like SGA can be the MVP, and we can still say Joker is the better player, right?
Yep.
In terms of his overall impact. Because I know people want to get into these conversations about there's the two-way player, and then there's the incredibly transcendent offensive player, right? It would be the same argument you would make about James Harden. It's the same argument you would make about Luka. I completely understand it. If a guy is so incredibly offensively dominant, that offensive player probably has more impact than the two-way player, right? That's just a fact. Unless the two-way player is somebody like LeBron or somebody or somebody like a Hakeem Olajuwon or a Michael Jordan, the two-way player that can lock people down and impact defense and still drop 35 points. But in Joker's case, he's such a dominant and prolific offensive player. I mean, a center averaging basically 30 points a game with over 11 rebounds and 10 assists. That's amazing. I would never hate on that, but I just want people to watch all of the game. Like when SGA is doing his thing, he actually impacts both ends of the floor.
Let me ask you this. Is Joker the player that can beat voters fatigue? If he that player that can beat MVP voter fatigue, is he that player?
I would argue if he was that player, then this MVP race wouldn't be close. This is gonna be close. I don't think it's, you know, the weird thing, you just said something about voter fatigue. SGA has never won the MVP. I'm starting to think that there's voter fatigue about him.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden people are making jokes about, oh, no matter what, SGA taking 9 free throw attempts or 8 free throws. And I'm like, why are you talking about his free throw attempts now? Like he's probably averaging just under 9 free throw attempts. 2 years ago, he was averaging over 10 free throw attempts, and I didn't hear nobody crying about him taking free throws. So you know what I mean? But now that he's an MVP candidate, you start poking holes in his game.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yep,
Does Luka not cry for fouls?
He does.
We don't call him a free throw merchant, but he does. Right. So I think it's in a weird way, without him ever winning an MVP, people have turned on SGA and said, "Oh, this guy's crying for that." That's kind of weird to me. I'm like, there's voter fatigue for the guy that's never won one already,
right?
Which is why I think Joker has a real shot to win.
He does. He really does. Heading over to the NFL for a little bit, Shedeur Sanders has been getting a lot of criticism from not being aggressive enough on his decision making. But other than that, do you still think he's a top QB prospect this year?
Look, if you need a quarterback, you draft a quarterback. I mean, I'm not just saying any quarterback. If you need a quarterback and you believe Shedeur has the potential to lead your franchise for the next 10 years, then you draft him. But if you're not completely sold on him, if you're not in love, you gotta be in love with him, right? Like we know, like there's no question in our mind, draft night, if he's there, we're drafting him, then that's your guy. Go get him. But if you have any doubts where you're like, I don't know, I'm not convinced. And I think there are some GMs that are like in love with him. I think there's some other GMs that are like, we can find somebody better than that in the third round. You know what I mean? Like, and they might be right. It is. Look, when you're drafting a quarterback, he can have the most amazing workout in the world, and that doesn't mean a thing. I don't mean anything. I don't mean anything. You ain't got no pass rush coming at you. You don't have no safety walking up to the line of scrimmage, getting ready to come tear your head off. It's a completely different thing when you get padded up and it matters. So, look, I'm rooting for Shedeur and his career going forward, but I'm looking at Cleveland and I'm like, I have to assume if Cleveland passes on him, I think other teams will too.
I'm hoping my Saints can draft up at 6. Draft trades from trade up, move up in the draft, number 6 and pick him up. My concern, um, because I like him too, but for the Saints, I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of draft capital to make that happen. But even if they did, my concern, you remember a player by the name of Aaron Brooks?
I remember him for the Saints. He was one of those guys who used to drive me crazy. Will you maybe for the same reason? Athletic as anybody else, cannon for an arm. But for some reason, Aaron Brooks was one of those guys that was so hell bent on proving that he was more than a running quarterback that he wouldn't run. He wouldn't run.
Yep.
No, go ahead.
And that's my point. That would be my concern. If we did draft up to 6 to get him, that would be my point. I would want him to be Aaron Brooks 2.0. I really would want him to be that. I think Shedeur has all the talent in the world, but I agree with you. If the Browns pass him up at 2, other teams will probably pass on him too.
And look, if you're the Saints, like you said, maybe you trade your pick, right? Maybe you trade your pick and you get more picks, right? You have greater needs across the board, do you not?
Yes.
So going forward, if Derek Carr is going to be your starting quarterback for this season, he's your starting quarterback until the young guy's ready to go, right? That's really what it comes down to. If the young kid can beat him out, or at least put enough pressure on him to where if he loses a couple games, they're going to install him, then you need to add talent around to set the young guy up for success, right? We always talk about that.
Yep.
So
draft down, get some more talent.
Right. So that might be something that they're looking at doing too. Look, like I said, I think Shedeur can be a good quarterback at the next level. I can't tell you what his ceiling is, because maybe his ceiling is just that, a good quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what his ceiling is. A lot for Shedeur to me will depend on who drafts him.
Yeah.
Because does it not start with your culture? It starts with your culture. You gotta have a plan. You have to have a plan, and then you have to have a certain kind of culture around you that he can embrace, and you can build on that.
I agree. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, the Steelers hosted Jackson Dart. I like Jackson Dart. Do you think the Steelers are going to draft Dart and pick up Rodgers to hold the QB1 spot down?
I think they should. I think they should, because even if Rodgers becomes a Steeler, which, by the way, no one knows that that's going to actually happen, because he's having too much fun stringing this out. But even if he does, he's not part of your future. He's your quarterback for this season, and maybe you might squeeze another year at him, but he's not part of your future. So I do think you have to address that quarterback position. You have to.
Oh yeah, you do.
And if I'm Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers can be a lot. He can be a lot to deal with. I don't know if I want that. I want that.
It would be, because he's more of a players type coach. It would be even hard for him, I think, to deal with Aaron.
Right, because you know what Aaron is. It's not just Aaron. Then it's Aaron going like, well, my boy Randall Cobb's a free agent, and you know what I mean. Aaron he needs to have his guys around him to feel good about himself. Like, I'm not just giving your dude some random roster spot he's not even going to play. Like, I'm not here to make you feel better.
Exactly.
I don't know what the Steelers are going to do, because what if Aaron Rodgers ups and ends up signing somewhere else? Like, what is your plan? What is your plan?
Go get Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, that's scary. That's a scary thought.
That's a scary thought.
it really. But did they not put themselves in that position?
Yeah.
They could have avoided immediately made a deal with Justin Fields to come back immediately.
Oh yeah, facts. All right, you guys. This is Coffee and Sports in the Morning here on Wide Wire Network. We got about 10 minutes left to go on the show. Mo NFL owners has passed a rule that both teams will be allowed to possess the ball, that both teams will be allowed to possess the ball in overtime in the regular season. The original proposal was for a 15-minute overtime that now has been amended to 10 minutes. What do you think about that new ruling?
I think I like the idea that both teams get a shot, right? You know what I mean? Like too many times it's been decided on a hand toss, right? The idea that a coin flip does not decide it, I like that. You get an opportunity. If your defense fails you, if your offense can come back and respond, you have a shot to still win the football game. So I'm okay. This is one of those rulings that I think is actually a pretty good rule.
I think so too. I think so too. And I think it's kind of like long overdue, so to speak. Um, I wish we would have had it in certain other games back in the day. But hey, we have it now, so let's see what it does.
God knows
Um,
how crazy that was back in. I mean, how many times did your team go to overtime? The other team, they won the toss, they received, and they went down and kicked the field goal. Game over.
yep, yep. Without a chance to respond.
Right. Game over.
We're gonna finish up with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys. They make a trade with the New England Patriots to get Joe Milton the third. Do you think it should be your starting quarterback over that?
No, not at all. If Dak's injured, sure, but if both men are healthy, Dak's going to be your starting quarterback. I think Joe Milton is still one of those players that's in his developing stage,
Mhm.
and he might be one of those late bloomers, but
Young still.
right, but he may very well end up being a starting quarterback at some point in his career.
Mhm.
But right now in Dallas, there's no quarterback controversy. Dak's the guy.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
The only question is what Dak will look like over the course of the season, because again, the Cowboys don't have one of the better offensive lines, so Joe Milton might get to play at some point.
Did you see him? Did you see him in college?
I did.
Ooh.
He was
That was a,
cold.
that was a bad man.
He was
That was
he
a
was good. He was cold. He's a freakish athlete. Can throw the ball a mile. The only question is though, can he throw a receiver open? Can he dissect the defense when he walks up to the line of scrimmage? Can he play turnover free football on a consistent basis?
yeah. And like I say, I saw him in college. Watch a lot of his college game film. Um, Amazing, looked amazing. So we'll see what he does with the Cowboys. I'm hoping that don't get hurt. And they can do something with that wide receiver room. Um, but again, it's the Cowboys. You don't anything can happen.
And it's usually not for the better, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah. Um, and last but not least, we did go ahead and Julio Jones announced his retirement from the league. What was some of your thoughts about Julio Jones as a player?
I watched him since he was with Alabama in college, right? Julio Jones to me was one of those big receivers, but he was a great route runner,
Yeah, he
right?
was.
He could work underneath, he could work the middle, had the ability to get deep, uh, terrific high point the football, attack the ball. Just a terrific in his prime before the injuries was an amazingly productive receiver. Um, do I know? I guess when you look at the scope of his career, if Julio Jones is going to be in the Hall of Fame, I don't know. There are a lot of great receivers, and they all get kind of bunched up because of the numbers. I'll say this: if he gets in, it won't be first ballot.
No, no, no. He'll go. And I don't know if they do or they don't. He
Hey,
could be
you
in the
know
Falcon.
what?
He could be in the Falcon Hall of Fame.
I'm glad you brought that up. Or if he can be patient and wait like 10 years or so, I'm sure he still got better numbers than Drew Pearson. He got in, so
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I
True,
mean. Like
true,
like he had
true,
he
true.
had to he had to cry a couple of times. And the veteran committee, they let him in, but I'm not saying Julio's not getting in. I'm just saying he's not going to be first ballot
No, no, no. He'd be in the first ballot Falcon Hall of Fame though.
for sure, and he
Give him
deserves to
that.
be.
Him and Roddy White. Get both of them props
Roddy White
for
was
what they
dope.
did. Do what they did for the Falcons. Man, it's tough being a Saint fan here in Andrew. It's tough. It's tough. Every time I go somewhere with my Saints hat on, people look at me, take that damn thing off.
That makes you a true fan, Will.
It does. It does. But dag. And we had this baseball news very quickly. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays reportedly agreed to a 14-year, $500 million contract. Bruh. I got my kid playing the wrong sport.
We all have our kids playing the wrong sport. Like if I could do some things over, I'd be like, I don't care if you love basketball.
You play baseball, son.
Right. These guys are getting $500 million guaranteed contracts. And by the way, nothing against Vlad Guerrero Jr. But that $500 million is guaranteed. You and I both know that man ain't playing 14 years.
No.
Right? So it's really $500 million for what, 6 years maybe?
A 6-year deal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Tops. And it's guaranteed. Yeah, baseball's a sport to be. Like if you want to be rich, go play baseball.
Play baseball. And you ain't working 9 times out of 10. You ain't working on CTE.
No.
Unless something freakish happen to you.
Right.
You might have a sprained digit.
Right.
Or something like that. You know.
Running the pads or trying to slide, that anything's possible, but in terms of your long-term health and the money,
yes,
why wouldn't you play baseball?
Exactly. All right, Mo, we got 3 minutes left to go here. Coffee Sports in the Morning on Wire Sports. Go ahead and take us out, my friend.
Thank you guys for joining us this morning. We appreciate you. Make sure you guys check out all the great content we have at Wire Network. Wire Network. Appreciate you guys.
Shout out to Carmike. Get better soon, my friend. Gene over there on vacation. Man, Gene, have a great vacation, man. We hope to have you back with us next week. And we'll see you guys tomorrow right here on Coffee and Sports in the Morning on Wire Network. You guys have a great day.